and put them up with compa. Them a put on the nice man, them put them. Them a
Hi, I'm Slimez, Cameron Kush. I'm from LA. I make bass music, and this is my Husky Chat with Rory and special chicken wing edition. All right, so it's kind of a long story, but I originally got into producing music. I was like a singer-songwriter, and I played the guitar, and I wrote my own songs, and I was just like, man, I really want to record this stuff. So I ended up recording like a pop, rock, electronic crossover EP that was really, really bad. But through that process, I taught myself how to produce. I opened up Pro Tools for the first time and recorded a really bad EP, but it was my intro to production, and it made me fall in love with it. And through that, I got less and less into the instrument side of it and more into the computer side of it. So that EP got me into college. I went to NYU, did a 4-year program there. By the end of it, I wasn't playing instruments anymore. I was just like straight producing music. And also when I was in New York, I was going to the clubs and in the New York scene a lot and just really getting immersed in the culture. And when I was done in New York, I eventually moved back to LA and started Slimez after I had been producing probably 8 years at that point. Well, yeah, I've never put out like an EP as Slimez. I've only done singles so far, and I just wrapped up my first EP. It's called the Spine Snapper EP, and it's gonna be coming out in probably like 2 months, 4 tracks. And the title track, I've teased it a lot. It's called Spine Snapper. It's got some vocals from my man Atari from Salt Lake City, who actually just got added to a show I'm playing in Salt Lake City with Carbon. And I'm gonna bring him out and we're gonna do a live performance of Spine Snapper for the first time. That is next Wednesday, like just a few days from now, so I'm super hyped about that. Well, Protohype's just awesome. Like he's the dude. The first time, actually, I think it was the first time I met him. Yeah, it was in Reno. We played a show together in Reno, and we had an awesome show. And then we went to the casino afterwards, stayed up till like 7 a.m. playing blackjack, and we both came up on some money, and that's how we bonded. And since then, we have the same agent, so anytime we get together on a show, it's always a good time. I've kind of done the same thing with like Pogman. I've done a few dates with him. I think I'm going to be doing a few dates coming up on Figures Tour. I've done the same thing with Phase 1. I've done a few dates with Phase 1. Going to be doing some more with Phase 1. So like those dudes, I love my agency, Warpath, where I'm at, and I get to share some dates with some really cool people. Well, I feel like kind of being a producer, like you have to be okay with failing. Like all the time people come up to me and they ask the question, they're like, what would you say to somebody that's just starting out as a producer? And what I always say is what I learned from experience. I'm like, you're gonna make really bad music at first and it's gonna suck. But with every song you make, it's gonna get better. And eventually, like a little bit down the line, you'll finally make a song where I'm like, man, I'm really happy with this. And then you'll tap into that, keep making music, never give up, and then you'll eventually get to the place where you're just like, wow, like I'm really happy with this. So the only thing that's gonna stop you as a producer is like if you give up on yourself. Because nobody just gets into it and they're just like, wow, I made a Grammy hit in my first song. Like, you got to learn everything. You got to make a lot of bad music before you make a good song. Well, I feel like I've hit a few milestones so far. First one would be just graduating from like a 4-year music production college with a degree. And then after that, I started throwing my own party in New York and did really well. So I was on like the kind of promoter side of it and threw a cool party in New York for a year. And then from that, I got a residency in New York and I held that down for like 3 years. And that was awesome. And all of that experience gave me, you know, the skill set to finally move back to LA a little over 2 years ago and launch Slimez, which was like for the first time, I wasn't just thinking of myself as like a DJ, you know, because before I was just like a resident DJ, but actually thinking of myself as an artist and, you know, a musician and a producer. And so I've really, really gone forward with that. And, you know, getting a manager, getting an agent, working your way up the industry totem pole every step of the way. Like, you just got to keep building. And then here I am putting out my first EP, and I'm really stoked on it, and I'm really proud of it, and I can't wait to put it out there into the world, and we'll see what happens. Well, the hardest part of it, which was expected, was like, you know, I had built up, I threw my own parties in New York, I had a residency, you know, people knew me in New York. But I moved to LA and I realized that nobody cared, like what I did in New York. So it was basically starting over, but it was good for me because it made me have to work harder, it made me have to push harder, and at the end of the day, I wouldn't be here talking to you if that didn't happen. I mean, I would love to play Imagine. I've heard a lot of good things about it, a lot of good things about Iris in general. But I'd say the end-all be-all, of course, at this point in bass music is Lost Lands. You know, I was really hoping to get on that lineup this year, and I felt like I had a lot of support. They did that whole voting thing. And, you know, I didn't get the nod this year, which, you know, I completely understand, but I'm just going to keep working, keep pushing, and you'll see me on that lineup eventually. I started listening to dubstep in 2008. I was like I remember it so clearly. I was like a sophomore in high school, and we were going off campus for lunch, and my friend had a convertible, and I was in the back seat, and we were just driving, and they started playing Caspa and Rusko's Fabric Live 37 mix, and I had never heard anything like it before, and I was just like, what are we listening to right now? And they were just like, oh, it's this thing called dubstep. It's like from the UK, like it's like the new thing. And I was just like, oh my God. And that was literally like 11 years ago now, and like my life has never been the same. So like dubstep has completely taken over my life, and I wouldn't have it any other way. I feel like it's getting a little bit more complicated again, but like going back, like why Riddle got so popular, I feel like is because like the younger kids who never heard the simplistic dubstep that dubstep was before it became a loudness war and got into bro step, and like not saying they didn't make good music, but like the Skrillex and all that stuff, it just became like, how loud can we be, how many lasers can we put into it, and like, you know, and then Rhythm kind of like reverted back to just like the flow and the groove and just being simple. And I feel like the reason it got popular again is because the 18-year-olds now, the 20-year-olds now, they never grew up with like that original simple dubstep. So they're like, this is cool. And I'm like, yeah, this is dubstep from 10 years ago, but just like with a little heavier edge on it. Yeah. So like that's my shit. I love the Caspa, the Rusko stuff that now I think is reimagined through like the simplistic rhythm.
You like that dance, please?
Yeah. Yes, dude. He's the greatest. I had no clue it would happen, but I did like a throwback remix of Mr. Chips, which was actually the first song that I heard like in the mix when I was listening to it in 2008. And I just like threw this remix out there, and he like retweeted it, was like, hey, send me this, like I'm gonna play it. And I was just like, oh my God, this simulation is glitching. Like Rusko sent me a message on Twitter, like my life was made, like superhero status, like Rusko is my Superman. I don't really know how to answer it except just feel it. Like, I just sit in my room and like bounce to something, and I just really like concentrating on flow. Like, you know, like sound design is cool, but I like taking just like a patch and then creating like a bouncy flow around it, so that it's more about like the journey and not just the, I don't know, just like being all in your face. I like to concentrate on the flow. Like I feel like Samurai's kind of, which was like probably one of my biggest releases, which came out on Disciple Roundtable. It's like a good like indicator of that. Like I think there was like 3 or 4 sounds used in it, and then other than that, it's just like literally like rhythm. Like you could like just play it out on your on your knee. I don't know, I think when I was watching a movie and I got a boner when I shouldn't, like, I was like, what's happening down there?
The rest is all history.
Yeah. Rhythm? Yeah. All right, yeah, so my first EP is coming out soon. Keep it locked, keep a lookout, and I'm Slimez, and this has been my Husky Chat with Rory.